We talked this week to wide receivers coach Garret McGuire, who's now, a full month into spring practice. It's the first time we've talked to him since the one other time he spoke to the media. And, the more you hear, the more you see, the more you learn. This is an impressive young coach. And, I think a lot of people at the beginning just looked at the age and maybe question it on the outside. But when you hear coaches that were at that coaches clinic and, they watch his presentation, they watch him coach, you hear the current players. You heard Gatlin Bear in Robin's chair when he was up here talking to us from Burley, Utah, or Burley, Idaho, excuse me. He
said it was going to be interesting to learn with him.
And so this is a guy that continues to get a lot of praise as somebody that really wasn't on anyone's radar until about 3 months ago.
We got a lot of praise today from Matt Rhule. A lot of praise. Rhule also said you could tell Rhule was irritated about people questioning Garret McGuire. He's 24. And it's okay. I mean, it's perfectly fair to question that age. I mean, it is. He's a young guy. And you wonder how that's going to be. Rhule said it affected recruiting, those questions. And he kind of didn't like the fact it came from in-house, which he means the Nebraska media. Some of it.
What does that mean, though? Like, is he talking about, like, some of the receivers locally? There's a couple good receivers they've offered, like Davon Hall, Isaiah McMorris.
I don't know what it meant, but Rhule said that it affected it. So it's sort of interesting that he said that. He also said that, look, this guy coached in the NFL players making millions of dollars responded well to him. He said Garret McGuire has a hard edge. He's not just a hype man. I mean, this is what Rhule said. It's just not a hype man. He's got a hard edge.
Yeah. And just watching him for the brief instances that we have, you can see a little bit of that. You watch him coach on the field, he doesn't look like a 24-year-old kid, whereas who's in over his head that is having a hard time getting his players' attention. Guys listen to him. He's thorough and direct with how he communicates on the field. And I think guys respond to that. And I think the other element to that is, while there might be some negatives in terms of his experience, I think there's positives in his ability to relate with guys differently than a coach 20 years older than him, to where he's got an office that's stocked full of snacks that guys feel comfortable going in there and just hanging out. Like, not even guys in his own room. Like Eric Gilbert comes there every single morning to hang out with them. And I think that's really important to establish that relationship for, especially a coach that is that young. You got to find a way to connect with guys. And I think his ability to bond with guys as people is what's making that difference, where he's building that trust, where what he might lack in terms of resume and, track record. Yeah. He's making up for with just the personal relationships and ability to connect with guys, and going to Marcus Washington and saying, hey, you have a 1-year-old son. That's your why. And like using that as a motivator. Like most 24-year-old kids don't think like that. I mean, he's coaching well beyond his years.
Yes.
Who doesn't like a cabinet full of snacks? We have them here, and Steve Sipple, that's why he shows up on.
I mean, what is the first thing I do every time I walk in? Just straight for the cabinet.
Rips 3 bags of jerky.
Yeah, ripped one.
A pot full of Nespresso pods and a cabinet full of snacks. You get Steve Sipple up here every day.
The espresso, this is the best I felt all day. And what time is it?
It's always here. It's always waiting for you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
You're listening here to the Husker Online show, and let's talk more about some of these receivers. Matt Rhule did get into the discussion about Billy Kemp. We talked to Joshua Fleeks this week. We talked to Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. There's a lot there, Sip, with just some of these guys, and it sounds like a position of strength.
Well, yeah, and you didn't mention the leading receiver by far.
Marcus Washington.
Yeah, Marcus Washington.
Xavier Betts.
Yeah, Marcus Washington by far the leading returning receiver. 31 catches last year, 491 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the next on the list is Alante Brown with 12. In fact, what I'm getting at is Marcus Washington gets overlooked a little bit. And the previous staff liked him because he was in what little practices we saw last year, Washington was very engaged, enthusiastic guy, all in. Had a good year. Now, if you're Marcus Washington, you want to turn it up. I mean, now you want to go from 31 to 50 catches. We'll see how the ball gets spread around, but he's a good-looking player, 6'2", 190 pounds. He doesn't have that kind of Trey Palmer speed, but he's well, and you heard Garret McGuire say it, he's a competitive sucker.
Mhm.
He is. Washington, we watched him all last year. That's a good description. He's a competitive sucker.
Yeah, and he's motivated.
By his son.
And McGuire's found ways to find those motivators. So I think that's certainly promising on that front. But also, Sean mentioned earlier that they're kind of toning things down with Billy Kemp, that he's kind of proven himself as that known commodity. Like they know what they have with him.
He kind of is what they thought he was.
They don't need him getting 50 reps a scrimmage or anything like that. So as a result of that rest of that receiver room, which is loaded, where they have like 15 scholarship guys, so I mean, like, there's a lot of bodies in that room, but they're all getting reps today or Tuesday. McGuire said that they got 180 reps in their Thursday practice this past Thursday, and each guy got about 30 to 40 reps per receiver. So I mean, talk about opportunity. I mean, you're talking about the Sean Hardys and the Victor Jones Juniors, like guys that aren't really getting talked about much.
Yeah, we don't talk about
they're at least getting a chance, and they're getting out there. They're getting reps, meaningful reps, getting on film. So I think with the way that Nebraska is practicing, while it seems like a huge number that they have at receiver, they're finding ways to maximize every second of practice and getting guys at least a shot to prove what they can do.
Well, and how about, the walk-ons too? Ty Hahn, who, he was one of the best athletes to come out of 8-man in the state. Carter Nelson trumps that now.
Johnson Brock,
but he was a 1,000-yard receiver, led his team to a state championship, and he was going to win the 100, I believe. I mean, he was that good all around. He's a 10-8 guy. But then the Bullocks, not only Alex, but his brother John.
Alex is the receiver.
But the two brothers from Creighton Prep, they're valuable walk-ons in this program, and both could play this year.
Yeah, and that's not us saying that. Rhule, unsolicited, said the
went
guys
out of his way.
Yeah, unsolicited. Rhule said the guys that don't get talked about enough are Alex Bullock and Ty Hahn. That's, for him to say that, just bring it up. He was asked about the receivers, but he said right off, the guys who don't get talked about enough are Alex Bullock and Ty Hahn. That is a feather in those guys' cap for the head coach to do that.
So the COVID year, you weren't with us at that point. Obviously,
I was alive.
You were at another news outlet.
R.I.P.
We went to a lot of high school games that year.
I was with us
because I was determined to keep content flowing for our website. So all of us on our staff went out to different games, and I went to a bunch of Creighton Prep games. And they played Lincoln Southeast that year on that field with Sam Sledge, AJ Rollins,
Alex
Bullock,
John Bullock.
Then you had Gatula, and you had some really good players, Applegate, from Southeast, all these guys on the field. Alex Bullock was the best football player on the field. The game he had a couple receiving touchdowns. He had an interception. I mean, these were like game-changing plays where he was making plays all over the field. Like Creighton Prep, he was their best player on that team. Like when you went to the games, he was clearly a guy that got hurt because of COVID. And he's not 6'2".
He is 6'2".
Oh, he is
6'2", 195. That's what he's listed.
Okay. Well,
that's what he's listed.
His measurables and he just doesn't jump off the page.
Right.
But when you watch him play, he jumped off the page.
That's interesting, Sean. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and so I'm excited for that kid because he kind of gambled, bet on himself to walk on here, and he's doing it. I mean,
his brother is.
Like, I was surprised he didn't get some quality Dakota offers in other places because he could play at those schools.
The staff likes those Bullock boys. They really do. Those are, like, you can tell there's certain guys this staff has picked out that they noticed.
There's Alex right there.
There he is. They like Alex Bullock. They like Heinrich Harburg.
When did Harbaugh have a kid coming?
They like Harbaugh. They like Heinrich Harburg. They like that running back, number 22. Help me.
Gabe Urban Jr.
Yeah, they like those. They like those guys. They bring those guys up all the time.
On that note, let's close on this. Running back, A.J. Allen.
Yeah. Quiet.
A lot of connected dot, a lot of conspiracy theorists out there wondering what's going on because he's kind of been limited. He's not been discussed much. We know what's coming April 15th.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's a guy I think everyone will watch kind of where he's at. He was repping in practice on Tuesday, but with a green jersey on.
So he went from yellow which is off limits practice completely to green.
Mm-hmm.
So he was practicing. He looked good.
There he is right there.
Yeah, he looked good running the ball in green. I don't know. I
just hate speculating on
No, I
that
don't
sort
wanna
of
do it.
stuff. I mean, what if he had like a head injury or something?
Yeah.
He was forced to sit out.
Yeah.
Because I mean, so we saw him
Thank you,
last
Rob.
week in the yellow jerseys. Then that night, I think that night he's posting videos of him like dunking a basketball, like at the rec or something like that. So I mean, I don't know, and so that probably leads further into the
Although
conversation about why he's out. But you just never know,
No.
and we just not informed enough on what's actually happening to start jumping to conclusions, especially with something like that, suggesting that someone has got a foot out the door. Like I'm not ready to do that.
No, the only thing that, it's kind of curious because they've talked so extensively about Gabe Irvin. Anthony Grant, not so much.
But we know what Grant can do.
Yeah, it came off a suspension. He comes off a suspension. AJ Allen, I don't know. I mean, it's just sort of a mystery right now. And Rhule was asked about him today and just stuck to kind of the injury news. He doesn't volunteer much information on him. So it is something to watch.